All right, welcome back to the Get Aligned podcast, where we talk about topics and cover questions to help you align your real estate business with success. As always, I'm here with Brett Sikora to rap about open houses today. Fun.
Open house,
The shiny object everybody wants to hear about, right?
The open house playbook.
It's so how we got here, right? To this topic today. We just had an awesome leadership offsite, right? We were talking about leveling up some of our training and sales process and all this stuff, and celebrating the last year and really looking forward to next year, which, I mean, the numbers are getting really fun and exciting. And I'm just, really, really pumped to keep just chipping away and building this thing. Right. But you put up last year's pie of where deals came from.
Right.
And SOI was number one, which is awesome. I think we want to strive to always keep it there. Online leads was top, right? Because that's like just something the world has moved into, Zillow and Realtor and all these things being super good.
Yep.
And the one thing that I noticed that I was like, I built my business off that, so I can't ever not look for it.
Yep.
It was open houses was probably a smaller piece of the pie. And I think that's the whole market. I don't think that's just us. I think a lot of the market's that way. And I was like, I want that pie. I want that piece bigger. Like,
right.
There's opportunity there. Right. So talking about some topics to go over today. And I said, let's hit open houses and talk about it a little bit. But let's talk about that leadership offsite for a second, man. That was awesome.
Yeah.
That was a good time.
Right? No, definitely. And it really, that particular one came as a conversation with you and I talking about, and this ties back to the keynote at EXPCon too,
right?
It's how do you make everything really the best that it can be, and really looking at the business in that way. And, during that offsite, it had come about because we know our training's incredible, but it can be better.
Yep.
And we know that our systems, I don't know what I could really fix in the systems component.
That back end stuff, like I don't even go to those meetings anymore because I'm like, I don't want to mess this stuff.
Yeah, I love that you actually sat in on them for a little bit.
Yeah, and I was like, I can't contribute here. I'm out. You guys are good.
I was never on those. But yeah, the operational aspect of things, everything's like really dialed in. And now where we're seeing a gap is, okay, how do we really, really, really quantify making agents' lives better?
Yep.
And that's about getting them to produce more than they are today, work less, take more vacations, whatever it may be, get aligned around their goals, but having that process really dialed in. And when we're looking around that chart that you're talking about, I believe is like 45% or so is past client center of influence. Yeah. Zillow landed, or online leads landed about 25% of the organization from it. And then, you found the open house slither, which is maybe 4%.
It was 14 deals. So whatever that math comes to. And I was like, we take way too many listings as an organization to have that number so small. There's opportunity there.
Right.
And I think this ties back perfectly, right? This is like an open house training that I created just a couple of years ago that probably needs to be refined a little bit. And we're not going to go through the whole thing today. If you want it, DM us, we'll send it to you. But like, that just needs to be in the training calendar more frequently. And I think that number will automatically go up, right? Just a little more intentionality around, if open houses is one of your pillars,
right?
How many are you doing? How many buyers are you expecting to pick up per each one?
Yep.
And then how are you prepping to make sure that happens, right? So today we'll talk a little bit about just the the blueprint for the 5 main parts of an open house.
Yep.
Again, the details here. So if you want it, shoot us a note, we'll send it to you, but we can go on probably for 20, 30 minutes per pillar.
Yeah.
But we'll try to like hit on those top 5 to give everyone something they could take away to their open house this weekend.
I dig it. I'm happy you're touching on this as a topic too, because I think the market is not even talking about open houses. I remember Kyle Whissel used to have his huge mega open houses with, I think COVID tweaked things a little bit.
COVID tweaked it for sure. But here, like, to me, if I'm a new agent today, and I'm trying to build my book, I'm going back to open houses hard. Because we were just talking on the ride up here with Mark, and he's just a new agent of ours on the Zillow program, right? He's like, man, I spent 2 hours this weekend just talking about the NAR agreement with the new people that I'm meeting.
Yep.
So picking up a phone call, I want to see 123 Main Street. Cool. Here's the paperwork. Here's what it means. Here's how it goes. Here's the options. Here's the way we could do this. Meeting before, meeting after. Wait, why do I have to say all that? That's what open houses are like built for, in my opinion. Like having those conversations, we have to have certain paperwork out there. They're hanging out with you for a few minutes anyway, building rapport and not like trying to force that on a phone call. Like I'm going back to open houses heavy if I'm a new agent trying to like really build a good big book of business right now. So I think it's crazy that people aren't talking about it more. I think it's a huge opportunity. I definitely heard about it. People talking like, oh, open house will be an opportunity, but no one's really staying in that lane. And I think, for me, it's going to be something I'm going to focus on for the whole organization next year.
I used to say too, like if you're working sphere of influence and open houses, if those are like your two lead levers, I want you to do 8 open houses a month, and I don't want you to work Monday through Friday.
That's
Just
right.
take the whole week off,
That's
but hammer and play all out when you're going to do the weekend open houses.
we didn't do family events for like 3 years, Red and I. When we had no kids, right before we got married or first year of marriage, I wasn't a cold caller. I came out of finance. I'm like, if I have to cold call, I'm just going to go back into finance. I don't like,
Right.
why make a career change? I'm going to keep doing the same damn thing. So I was like, I'm not doing it. So I worked some leads, Zillow Flex, Zillow. That shit wasn't even a thing 10, 12 years ago. It was like in its infancy.
Yep.
So we got some leads from some other top agents, but like we worked our sphere, but we were young. We didn't have a great sphere yet. We had to cultivate it. Open houses was like everything to us. And we did that. We did many weekends. We did 4. We did like a 10 to 1 and then a 1 to 4, right? Like we just like found anyone who had a listing and what could we do, right? So if you commit to it, you could build a ridiculous business off of it. But I think like what open houses have become too is almost an appeasing for the seller.
Right.
Like, oh, the seller wants it, we have to do it. Let's find any random person to do it, or I'll just show up and do it, or da 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 da. Da. When that's complete, like that's is going to be a waste of time
Right.
for that person sitting in that open house. So that's how the people show up. And what people do properly that really make it a pillar that's meaningful is these 5 things I want to talk through real quick. And they're simple. They're going to sound simple, but it's the depth of how you're doing each one of these things that I think is important, right?
It's like relying less on the luck and getting a little more skill to enhance your
Wow,
luckiness.
funny how
Let's
these
do
things
that.
all tie together, right? And then just one last thing I'll say before we get into the specifics. Like people say, I'm a new agent. I don't really know what I'm talking about yet. Like I don't know how to talk to people at your open houses. First of all, just do a few. You're going to get better.
Yeah.
But like people are coming and they're shopping and they're looking for different attributes in their agent. And one of them is like their hustle,
Right.
their preparation, their ability to really like be intentional with the conversation. Because the older agents that are sitting them because they have to, because their sellers really want them to,
Yeah.
they're like, come on in, sign in. And they're like, oh, well, if they're ready to buy it today, maybe I'll work with them. They're not chasing them down, right? So
Yeah.
the opportunity is there for the newer, younger agent,
Yeah.
in my opinion, for open houses. So the first thing I want to talk about is prep.
Yep.
Obviously you have to prep for an open house, but I think the prep is like all too many times print out your flyers, put out your signs, open the door.
Right.
When we were doing these things at a high level and how we do our training with our agents who do open houses like crazy, the prep is like intense. There's prep for a lot of people will circle dial, call around the neighborhood. But to me, the more important prep is making sure that when someone walks into that home, you are an expert on what's happening in that building, that property, that subdivision, that we're depending, city or suburban. You know about every home that's on the market. You know about everyone that's pending. You know about everything that was just closed in the comps. You have lists of things. Hey, this property is not for you. Let's look at these other 4 properties here. Oh, did you already see the 3 other open houses today? Are you heading there next? Like the prep of knowing what's happening that day is how you set that initial tone with somebody that really has the whole relationship evolve off of.
Yeah.
Right.
I find so often too that like realtors have not been in like if you know by Wednesday you're doing an open house on Saturday, go tour everything in the neighborhood on Friday. You know, that is part of the prep.
Yep.
But so often you'll hear realtors that they'll be on an open house and then the client will say, "Oh, I'm going to see 123 Main Street," and you didn't even know 123 Main Street was listed, and it makes you look bad.
Totally.
But if you're the one delivering, like you might want to consider this as well. I have this till 3, but I could show it to you at 3:30.
Yep.
That sort of thing. I remember it might have been Glenda Baker too, where she was saying that she would pre-set up appointments for the. Was that
I was
you?
no, I don't know if I ever said it. If we ever talked about it, but we did.
Yeah.
Yeah. We would set an appointment for like 3:30 for the other one that's just like it, that's not having an open house.
Yep.
Oh, you want to see that one? Meet me back there at 3:30. And we'd take 2-3 people through it sometimes.
Yeah.
And now, like, I don't care if they buy that house, the house that I set the pre-appointment for, they're like not going anywhere if they're looking for a new agent. Right. Like they're like, this person's really well put together and planning here. Right.
Yeah. And I think back on homes that I've sold from open houses or just from being in properties and understanding what the client's needs are. And then knowing that, hey, you didn't, 416 grand was one that we had. Hey, you haven't asked to see 416 grand, but I showed it last night. And I think that it would be, what you're looking for. And then they end up buying it.
Totally. It's being like, our job's not to sell a particular property.
Right.
It's a service of helping people to buy a property, right? So like what they buy doesn't really matter to us. It's what fits their needs. But so many times they need a little opening of a window or a nudge in this direction. Did you consider this? Have you ever looked at something like that?
Right.
And like those sales happen all the time because people get fixated. They're like, I need this. And it's our job to bring them outside of that. And that's exactly what you're saying to do there, right? Is like have that that conversation on the onset of your relationship with somebody and show them that's how you're going to work for them as
100%.
well. So, I mean, we can go on and on and on about prep. I mean, there's 5, 6, 7 points of prep, but obviously we want to water ski over this a little bit for time's sake, because it's like an hour and a half training. Otherwise, I don't think you guys want to be here for that. Second thing is showing up and setting up, right?
Yep.
Showing up for the open houses. I'd see this just walking around town on Saturdays and Sundays, people putting out their signs at 11:59 for a 12 o'clock start, like running upstairs. And I don't know if you've experienced this. My best buyers and clients showed up right at 1 o'clock
Yep.
or whenever it started, or like at 3 o'clock, they were hustling in. And there's so many people that are not ready 20, 30 minutes outside either side. So setting up early, getting your signs out as early as legal in your town, honestly, because it's about marketing and advertising, and you want people to see those signs, right? So getting them out, not just putting them right before you go, going in, turning lights on, putting some music on, candles if you need it. Like some places we have tenants are living there, they have pets, they have different things. They're not as motivated to make the house look perfect. Go in and make that place look, it's a representation of you.
Right.
When people walk in, doesn't matter if it's your listing, tenants are living there, people, the sellers are neat people or not, it's a representation of you. So like make sure you can do within means, within reason, stuff to get that house prepped properly. And then to me, it's always important to have like the right setup on the kitchen counter or wherever you're going, like thoughtfully.
Yeah.
Like the sign-in sheet, the flyer for the property, the comps, the other available properties, now the new paperwork we have to have out as well. And having it set up properly where it looks good and for the first people, because they're always the most intentional buyers.
Yeah.
So that's a couple of things that I think are simple, but often forgot for setup.
100%. We've had both Doris Diaz and Tara Plaza on our team. Their setup for open houses is like above and beyond what people would typically do. And they've both had scenarios where people have come in to look to buy and then seen the way that the open house is represented and then want to work with them for the
100%.
listing side of things too, which is super cool.
That's something I think we forget about all the time, is like half the buyers that come in are sellers too, depending on your market, right? And they're shopping. When we have such a crazy market share in our little farm, people just come in just to like make sure that our team is still operating and cranking the way, because they're getting ready to sell in a year or 6 months and planning on using us, but they want to make sure that we're all show. So it's like, even as a team member or as a listing agent, making sure that you're dialed in there is going to help your future business of people who might be considering you already. You walk in, I judge people all the time when I walk in open houses and people are just like sloppily doing that. Like I would never hire this person if I was working, coming in as a client. So it's a simple yet like incredibly powerful thing to focus on that I feel like it's like, tossed away sometimes. Right.
Totally.
Cool. Next thing that I think is super important, I think people get lazy on this as you get more experience in the business, is how are you greeting people at the beginning of an open house? I'll kick it to you first. Like what was your go-to, what was your like the way to really start that interaction when someone's walking into an open house?
Yeah. When I think of, obviously introduce yourself and how you doing, Brett Sikora. Thanks for stopping by. I always like to find out, were you walking by or did you see it online?
That's crazy because we've never talked about this.
Really?
And that is exactly my opener every time. I mean, we must have both heard it from like Tom Ferry or something.
I just think it's an important piece of data because I've never had somebody, that too, and I could be wrong, but I've never had somebody randomly walk past and just come in and buy a home.
Right.
But I have had people who saw it get listed, knew there was an open house, specifically came, for that. So I think it's a really important piece of information. And then my next one is I always like to ask, do you live in town?
Totally.
And then we can kind of start breaking down from there, like what's going on.
I think the importance of what you're saying is that your opening questions they're light and easy. But they give you an incredible amount of data on how to take the conversation. Depending on if they're just walking by, like this might be a person you just want to be friends with and just be friendly with because they have no real estate needs and you don't want to push them on them because then you don't have any reason to build a relationship. But if you could just build a relationship in the next 3 years, they might refer you to people and use you then. But if they're like, no, I saw it on Zillow and like, I'm here at 101, like I need this house, then your conversation is completely different. And do you live in town versus not living in town? How much am I going to teach you about this town? Or is that going to be like, dude, why are you telling me all this? I've lived here for 10 years. I know this stuff. So like, they're super friendly opening questions, but like you can drive the total direction of the next 10 minutes you spend together efficiently and purposefully based on the responses to those. Right? So that's funny that you said that, man. I can't believe that. I was like, I wonder what Brett does. I'm going to kick it to him first. And that's like mine.
Well, and on that note too, while folks are signing in, we go through the YLOPO account. We use the electronic sign-in and everything too. I found it super helpful to have an Apple Watch on too. Because the other thing, when they're signing in, so many realtors, and again, we want to talk about squeezing the juice a lot more than like people already are.
Yep.
I've seen realtors that finish the open house and they're like, they didn't finish the registration. So
Crazy.
this is great because this actually dings when they hit
Yeah.
submit. And then I
Yep.
know that they actually put it through, where I'll stop them and just be like, I just want to make sure that everything get
Right.
filled
I
out
love
properly.
that. That's
So
cool.
just a little pro tip.
That's awesome, man. I like that a lot. It's one thing I've noticed too is, because we'll pivot quickly through this to get to how you close things out. You know, what we always like to do is have that little intro, a little conversation, let people go explore, right?
Yep.
You don't want to be up their butts the whole time. You don't want to be harping over them. Let them see the property a little bit. But then how you close it out is almost as important as how you open the interaction, right? And depending on where it's went, what kind of conversation you were able to get into. I mean, we could spend an hour on that, like how to guide those conversations in between. The big thing you need to do is make sure there's a next step.
Yeah.
Right. And if they're not interested in that property, it doesn't fit, or they're just not into that property, they just hop in across the sign. You might start talking about next properties to see. You might be talking about a buyer's consultation. You might be talking about grabbing a cup of coffee to talk more about their move in 3 years into Hoboken because they're, relocating and happen to be in town today.
Yep.
All those things. A lot of times, if you can provide the right type of value, you see them come back and give you a different email or a phone number.
Right.
All of a sudden, they're like, "Well, let me give you a different."
That's so true.
This happens, right?
Yeah.
It's wild, and that's always a sign to me that like this person is I've really done a good job. We built rapport. They see value, and like they become an A client immediately in my mind. But always setting up when they're leaving, and this doesn't happen every time because some people blow in, blow out, won't give you time of day. Like you have to take what you can get. You always try to move the needle and do better, but like some people just won't let you move it. What's the next step? Am I going to call you? Am I going to send you an email? Do we already have a pre-planned meeting?
Right.
If you don't do one of those things, even if they liked you, like there's very low chance that you're going to be able to re-engage with them at any high level,
Right.
in my opinion. Right. So ending it that way, recapping what you talked about, making sure to meet them where they're at. Some people might want to go see that property you have pre-booked at 3:30. Some people may want to talk to you in a month from now, next time they're back in town on business because they just happened to stop by today. Meet them where they're at and make sure you're setting some next action.
Yeah.
Is how I always want to close out a guest interaction at an open house.
Yeah. And I think with that, a lot of folks, so when you talk about prospecting or open houses or anything like that, there's a lot of failure that the realtor has to deal with as a result of that. And I think what happens with the realtors is they'll shoot a recap email out, or they'll call them Saturday at 4 on their drive home, and the person doesn't pick up, doesn't call them back, doesn't do anything. So they'll do it 4 times for like 1 month, and that's it.
That's it.
What I think the realtor needs to understand is that not everybody that comes through your open house has to transact with you, has to like you, has to, think you're amazing. But if 7 people come through and you're doing 8 open houses per month and you get 2 of them to convert, that's a really good number.
Totally.
And there's a lot of failure. What is that? 8 times 64? Yeah. So 62 people don't respond to you, but 2 do.
Yeah.
And you sell 2 homes.
That's right.
So I just think that realtors need such a instant satisfaction around it. And that's why they don't squeeze the juice as they're coming down through this open house playbook.
100%. I think that goes back to like controlling the actions, not the results.
Right.
Like people do an open house. Someone will come back to me. Oh, it was a waste of time. I didn't do it. It wasn't a waste of time.
Yeah.
You didn't know how many people were coming there.
Yeah.
Like if you only went to the ones where you knew guaranteed 10 people, 12 people were coming, you would do no open houses.
Yeah.
And you would have no business from open houses.
Yeah.
Right. You have to do the bad ones to find the good ones. It's just like, I know it stinks when you're in the moment and you're going through it and you feel like you wasted your day. You didn't. You're just playing the numbers game. Right?
Yeah.
It happens. We used to say every 2 open houses we would do, we'd get 1 buyer. And
Yeah.
that buyer might work with us in the next 2 weeks. It might be next 2 years. But we have 1 person that we'd add. Each one, if you can get down to 1, I mean, maybe it's a great market. Maybe it's a hot, like really busy neighborhood or market that you're working. You have a lot of people. If you can get 1 buyer from every open house.
Yep.
But if you play the numbers game with 2 and you're doing 1 every weekend and you do that for 52 weeks a year and you commit yourself to it, you did 52 transactions in your first year.
Yeah.
I mean, I think most people are happy with that, right?
Yeah.
But the follow-up game is huge on that as well. And I think, we're talking about people, some people that give us time of day, some people that don't, good people, bad people. Be very careful in the follow-up game, to start the 5th point here. Don't prejudge who the people are going to be that are going to work with you. There were people that I was incredibly blown away that they came back and worked with me for multiple reasons. One might have been they were just very cold and quiet and didn't really give me time of day. Another might have been they said they had another agent, and I asked who it was. Like, oh, it's somebody that we know, blah, blah. And I'm like, cool, no problem at all. But I'm going to follow up just to be friendly, right?
Yep.
Just, hey, hope all is well. Hope you enjoyed the place. If your agent needs any more help here, all of a sudden they didn't really have an agent, or they were about to fire their agent, and I worked with that person, right? The people that blow in, blow out at the end, you just get their information real quick, and they go home and look you up. They
Yeah.
see how many deals you've done. They look at your other listings, and they look at your reviews. All of a sudden, there's more connectivity there. They already met you, and now they trust you because what they saw. So number one is like, do not prejudge. Everybody gets robust follow-up. The second thing is, and this is something I just tell everyone still to this day, like, you're going to go do showings, probably do an open house, maybe do another showing or two, and you're going to come home at 5. Your kids are going to be there, or your partner is going to be there, or your football game is going to be, whatever it is, something else is going to be there. It's going to be like, I'm done. Send the follow-up that night. And I know this sounds extreme, and I know it's like you just worked your butt off. The power of sending the follow-up emails, text, video, text, whatever thing you're going to do, which I have some opinions on as well, that night, what every other realtor they met is sending it maybe Monday, maybe Tuesday, maybe never, but yours came in Saturday night, Sunday night, and it's not a pushy one. It's not like, hey, let's go see more properties tomorrow. Obviously, it's meeting them where they're at. You're just an easy separator versus 99.9% of other agents out there, right? So it's simple. It's not easy. Always remember to do that.
Yeah.
So what do you think about what else is follow up for you?
I think having that scheduled in too is super important.
Yeah.
Where I caught myself several times on weekends not having enough of the buffer in the day, and then you're scrambling, and then you're going through the motions when you're eating a pizza as fast as you can in the car between showings.
Remember, we used to pick up keys and drop off keys. Remember, like open houses, showings with key drop off and pick up. That's another
crazy.
You can do a whole podcast around the key situation,
the Wild
that
West
we used to have to deal with, right?
Yeah. But yeah, it was
having it scheduled.
It was chaos, and having the schedule component on it. Like, actually, if you're going to do an open house from 1 to 3, don't book another appointment until 4, and clear out your what you're supposed to do right after the open house. So yeah, I'll even challenge it where, get it done before you get home, get it done before all that. And I always feel really good when I've done what I was supposed to be doing. Wednesday night was a good example. We had an event on Thursday, and I told Jen Schiff that I owed her, text messages out to my database and stuff like that. And I knew that I was, it was just a long day. It was busy. And at 5:45, before I walked in my door, all the texts got out, 36 people. And then when I was with the family, I dealt with what came back from the text message that went out. But I told somebody that, this is what I was going to do. This is what I was committed to. And had I not done that, I would have felt pretty slimy integrity wise.
And that's another topic and podcast on its own side too, right? But like, enjoying your rest of your night because you did what you said you were going to do, is the same thing with this open house thing. Like, enjoying the rest of your weekend, the rest of your night, whatever you're going to do that Friday or Saturday, Sunday night, is going to be more enjoyable because you did the thing you need to do anyway, right? So like, it's not totally masochistic and just like, oh, we have to do this thing. It's also beneficial on the back end. So the follow up, speed to it, and then regular follow up forever until they tell you to stop. Ryan Serhant talks about it, right? Like, my best ability as a realtor is my ability to follow up with you until you tell me to stop or you die, or something like that. It was like a clip that I saw, and it's true, right? Like, you can get an email from somebody and just send an email, like, say you don't get a phone number, you're just sending emails. I've sent 50, 60 weeks in a row with no response. I'm like, I think we had a connection. Screw it. I'm going to keep following up. They come back, show them 3 properties, some property, right? Like, so you just never stop with the follow-up. Like, that's the key to it.
Yeah. And I'll leave it as we wrap up too with this, that I heard years ago that I may lose a sale, I'll never lose a client. And I think that if the realtors go into this with the open houses and clients and everybody they're working with, that it's okay if somebody doesn't use you for a sale, but we know that we're going to love on that person. Once the sale happens, we're going to go on the tax records, figure out their address, or when you're in conversation, oh, nice, where'd you end up buying? That's super cool. Have you checked out this pizza place next door? It's my favorite. Like, really getting into rapport with them. And listen, I'm going to set you up with kind of what's going on in the market. I'll start to keep you updated with it. Congratulations so much on the new purchase, and just moving through it that way, the consumer starts to feel like, holy shit, this is a different. This is totally different.
I mean, and that's the difference between building a business and having a job.
Right.
Like, if you just have a job and your job's to sell today versus a business that you're worried about the future health of it. And one last thing I'll say before we do wrap, because we're up on time. Tax records you just mentioned.
Yeah.
If you get people's real names and an idea of where they live, and you know how to use the tax records, as we all should as realtors, and you can find their address, which is publicly listed, and send them a personal note, like, forget it.
Yeah.
It's not happening. No
Yeah.
one else is doing it. Handwrite it, like 2 or 3 sentences, throw your business card in, reference the property you met them and the fact you sent them an email, and just say, it was great meeting you. Your chances of likelihood of keeping that as a client forever just goes through the roof. And that was something I think that is something not easy, again, but simple.
Love
Super
it.
simple. So awesome. I hope this helped, guys. Again, it's like 6 pages with specific details on all 5 of these points. If you want it, shoot us a DM and we'll get it out to you. Or we'll probably be doing this training. I'm sure we'll open one up to the public sometime soon and put it out there as well. So open houses, don't neglect them. You can build a sick business off it. And we'll see you on the next one.
Later.